All right, we'll go ahead and get started here. I know we have a lot to cover, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's Nisivoccia Presents webinar. We're glad to have you all here with us. Today, we are joined by a great panel of speakers who will be sharing their insights on retirement plans for businesses, talking about maximizing benefits, increasing employee participation, and staying compliant. So we're fortunate to be joined by a panel of experienced professionals from Nisivoccia Wealth Advisors, and our partners at Empower, Voya, and Future Plan by Ascensus. So together, they're here to bring together all their expertise on retirement plans, wealth advisory, and any regulatory updates that may impact you and your business. Before we get started, I just want to take a minute to point out a few features on your Zoom toolbar to help you engage throughout today's session. You'll see both the Q&A and chat functions at the bottom or top of your screen, wherever your Zoom toolbar is, and we encourage you to submit your questions and share your thoughts at any time throughout the presentation. Our team and I will monitor the chat and Q&A throughout the webinar and chime in with questions as we go. We'll also save time for the end to wrap up with a final Q&A. We also want to thank those who submitted questions beforehand. We've noted those and we'll be discussing them throughout the conversation today. So on your screen, you will see the agenda outlining today's discussion and introducing our speakers. And with that, I'm going to introduce the panelists we have here on the call. So starting out with Doug Collins. Doug is a partner here at Nisivoccia. He has over 30 years of experience helping businesses and high net worth clients optimize tax saving and achieve their financial goals. As a partner, he leads the firm's tax group, specializing in tax, audit, and advisory services for private equity firms, professional service firms, real estate developers, and it goes on. Doug advises clients in sophisticated tax and wealth strategies and holds multiple financial services licenses, so he'll have a lot of good perspective here today. Next, we have Damian Palmy here with us, who is the Director of Planning and Wealth Management for Nisivoccia Wealth Advisors. Damian is a certified financial planner and retirement plan specialist with over 20 years of experience advising business owners and individuals on financial planning, retirement strategies, and wealth preservation. As Director of Planning and Wealth Management at Nisivoccia Wealth Advisors, he designs retirement plans and income strategies that help businesses and employees achieve long-term financial success. We next have Bill Pretori, who is a wealth management advisor with Nisivoccia Wealth Advisors. Bill brings over 20 years of experience helping clients build financial balance and sustainable retirements. He is a U.S. Navy veteran and a former Fortune 100 executive with Franklin Templeton. Bill specializes in wealth management and financial planning for business owners, executives, and high net worth individuals. Next, we have Tony Dolagowski, who is a senior financial planner with Nisivoccia Wealth Advisors. Tony has over 15 years of experience helping businesses and individuals build long-term financial and retirement plans that support success. He began his career on Wall Street in trading and later became a small business owner himself, bringing a practical understanding of business needs to his wealth management work. And then for our guests today, who we're so thrilled are joining us, we thank all of you for being here. We have Randall Iovino, who is a regional sales director with Empower. Randall has over 25 years of experience in the retirement plan industry, helping businesses and nonprofits customize retirement solutions for their employees. As a regional sales director at Empower, he works with plan advisors, third-party administrators, and consultants across northern New Jersey to design retirement plans for businesses with assets ranging from $0 to $150 million. We also are pleased to welcome Gary Resnick, who is the Regional Vice President at Voya Financial. Gary has over 16 years of experience providing group retirement plan solutions to small and medium-sized businesses. As Regional Vice President at Voya, he works with financial intermediaries to deliver tailored retirement plans that help businesses achieve long-term financial security for their employees. He holds the accredited retirement plan consultant and accredited investment fiduciary designations, along with Life, FINRA Series 6 and 63 licenses. And last but certainly not least, we have Charles Rosenberg. Charles has over who is president with Intact Future Plan by Ascensus. Charles has over 20 years of experience helping businesses design and manage effective retirement plans. As president of Intact Future Plan, he leads the firm's sales and marketing efforts, overseeing a team of 65 pension consultants and marketing professionals. Charles consults on defined contribution and defined benefit plans, guiding plan design, and building strong relationships with plan sponsors and industry partners. He holds certified retirement counselor, certified retirement administrator, and accredited investment fiduciary designations, and serves on advisory boards for Nationwide and Voya Financial. So thank you all to our speakers for joining us today. As you can tell, we have a lot of expertise on this call. And before we get started with the discussion, I swear one last housekeeping item. Tony is just going to read a quick disclosure, and then Bill will kick off our discussion.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining the call. Today, securities are offered through Avantax Investment Services, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Avantax Advisory Services. Insurance services offered through an Avantax affiliated insurance agency. Thank you.
Hello, and I guess good afternoon now. Thanks for skipping lunch or perhaps eating while we're listening to us today. We appreciate you taking some time to speak to us. One of the things that I wanted to do to kick it off was just have some meaningful conversations. Obviously, any questions that you have along the way, feel free to send them our way. But one of the discussions and questions that came up as we were kind of talking through how to do this and what we thought made sense is I was having a conversation with Doug, and one of the things that come up is, Doug, we understand that one of the occupational hazards of being a CPA is that you can't go through a cocktail party or a luncheon without somebody either griping about taxes or asking how they can reduce taxes. So I thought we'd kick it off to you to just have a discussion on what some of the easiest and perhaps common ways are that you talk to your clients about reducing their personal taxes or business tax.
Sure. Thanks, Bill. So yeah, as Bill and I were talking, that's exactly, I kind of laugh. People always, want a free answer, right? How can I save on taxes, right? What's the easiest way to save on tax? I pay too much. I don't think anyone has ever said they pay too little. So everyone thinks they, rightfully so in certain cases, pay too much. So then I usually my next response 9 times out of 10 is going to be, are you maximizing your 401k plan? And if you're a business owner, do you have a 401k plan that you have looked at the design to maximize for yourself and your family members and your employees as well at minimal cost? So, as the, tax laws changed over the years, as probably many of us know, many people don't itemize. So, the SALT limitation has reduced ability for itemized deductions. And then, interest rates were so low prior to the last couple of years, where, the mortgage deduction wasn't that meaningful either. So many of our clients, even some very, substantial clients, are not itemizing using the standard deduction. So some of, even charitable contributions, may not be as valuable as you think if you're not getting over certain thresholds. So the one definite answer would be, are you taking advantage of 401k plan? Potentially an IRA if you're eligible. There's some limitations there as well, but the 401k plan contributions, are very much the quickest way, because really all you're doing is if you're using a deductible 401k contribution, you're taking assets that would be taxable and moving to another category. You're not spending any money. If you spend money on mortgage interest, that cash is, going to the bank. Charitable contributions may be very charitable, may be a good idea, but you're losing control of those dollars, where 401k contributions or IRA contributions, you're shifting them to a different pocket or a different bucket. So that is, and many people say, I can't, maximize yet. Well, that's where I'd work first, because really you're shifting your assets, and creating a tax benefit. If it's a deductible, there's something, a Roth, which is a little bit different avenue, which could have a future tax savings, which I'm sure we're going to talk about that in depth on this call.
Perfect. Obviously, as we looked at the list of attendees today, we have a lot of business owners that are either Nisivoccia clients or prospective clients on the call today. Again, we welcome you. Doug, if you could just touch on for a minute, what are some of the common issues that some of your business owner clients come to you about in regards to either plan performance, plan efficiency, or just challenges that they're having with their 401k plans.
Sure. The first thing I want to just kind of mention first, Bill, before we go down that a little bit, that is there are, in the Secure Act, there are some tax credits available if you, for business owners or, companies, in your HR department, where if you're starting a new plan, there are some credits available. It's a little complicated to figure out how much you'd be eligible for, but there are some benefits available. So I don't want to lose sight of that, but keep that in mind that they are there. I wouldn't advise starting a 401k plan for that reason alone, because, they will go away, but it's an added little tickler to give you something. The other thing I just wanted to mention before we go too far is if you're in New Jersey, which a lot of the attendees on the call are in New Jersey, if you have more than 25 employees, basically New Jersey there's some exceptions, but it's forcing you to either adopt a plan or go into a New Jersey plan because they're looking for employees, the residents in New Jersey, to have retirement planning. So it's for anyone more than 25 employees in your group, you're going to be forced down some path at some point. So and there's some different rules regarding that, but I just wanted to mention that. The other thing, kind of to your question, Bill, is that if you're a business owner, if you're an HR director, or just someone in leadership of the company, what you don't like to hear is from your employees get frustrated with your benefits, right? We've all heard it from health insurance. Oh, they didn't cover this, XYZ, 401k. No one, the 401k performance, right? I'm sure there's a lot of this going on in Q1 and probably into April. Oh, I lost my 401k. Why is our plan, doing this and that? Now, some of that's obviously market performance, which is just part of the market. But the other part is, as the business representative, either owner, the 401k plan is a fiduciary role. So really, you shouldn't be answering questions about, what type of investments or so forth. You push that off to whoever your provider is. So you want a good provider, third-party administrator who can help, your employees and not, have issues with the administration of the plan. So to me, that's what, business owners and leaders don't want the problem. So they'd rather their participants, their employees be happy with what they have, and just kind of smooth operation rather than usually problems rise to the top when they have issues with your team.
Perfect. Before we move on, and we will segue over to one of the providers, Doug promised me earlier that he wasn't going to bill anybody for questions today. So if you have any questions for Doug before we move on, feel free to give them out. Put them in the chat.
One other thing I just want to add on real quick, Bill, as you see if anything comes in, is, for estate type planning, I mentioned quickly about the Roth IRA or Roth 401k. That's a very powerful tool in the Roth, and that I'm sure most of us know Roth. You don't get the deduction when it goes into the plan or the IRA, but it's tax-free when it comes out, including earnings. So it can be a very powerful estate planning tool. Number one, in reducing your taxable estate, if you have a taxable estate, which we're not quite sure where that'll be in another year or two, but as well as, when you have required minimum distributions, if there's an inherited IRA and or 401k, your beneficiaries have to take those out over 10 years unless it's a spouse, where a Roth, really there is no requirement. It's a great generational estate tax plan as well. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out for some high level thoughts.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Doug. Hey, Gary, we wanted to kind of shift gears over to, kind of the TPA side. Could you give us your thoughts on the role record keepers play, not only to improve plan efficiency, but how that might affect the overall end client experience?
Yeah, absolutely, Bill. And, first I want to thank everyone that has joined, right? Everyone's here because they do care. They care about their plan. They care about their colleagues. They care about their own retirement. So, thank you for making the time for us. And really, your question, really the key ingredient there is surrounding yourself with the right team, right? And those that are providing the services to you currently, or you're thinking about having them provide the services, are they meeting up to the promises that they initially laid out, right? So when you think about some of the different entities involved, right, you generally have the financial advisor. I think of the financial advisor as the quarterback of the process. Is the financial advisor bringing new ideas to the company? Are they continuing to benchmark the plan as they should be doing? Are they providing participants education and guidance with allocating within their accounts? Then next I think about the third party administrator, right? Is the third party administrator helping you from a plan design standpoint? If your plan fails testing, are they being consultative on ways to rectify that? As Secure Act 2.0 came on, are they on top of that legislation and letting you know what is happening and when? There's so many various forms of profit sharing, right? Is that something that's being addressed? A lot of companies that I work with, you see plans that have been set up 10, 15, 20 years ago. The plan document was created then. The demographics have maybe changed quite a bit, but nothing has maybe changed within the plan document to address that, right? So critical to have the right partner there. And then, in terms of the right record keeper, right? Are you getting the quality service for fair value there? Is the record keeper keeping you abreast of other services that they could provide outside of just being a pure 401k provider? For example, if now they can offer a non-qualified plan or they have a managed account solution, are they responsive, right? Is their technology up to date? If you're looking in the app store because now they have a mobile app, right? What are the reviews there? So a lot to, for plan sponsors to really consider when surrounding yourself with the right team. And again, the reality is working through a great team of advisors or advisor will really kind of bring to light what the capabilities are out there. Most of all, what I'm passionate about, especially from the record keeper side, is helping employees get to their retirement goals. So what we want to do is just throw a poll out there that I know Katie has put together and hopefully get some audience participation. So Katie, could you throw the question up for everyone?
Yes, you should all see that now. So the question is, do you know how many of your employees are on track to replace at least 70% of their pre-retirement income? And then I'll share the results in about 10, 15 seconds.
Do we have Jeopardy music to play?
You don't want to hear me sing.
All right, I'll give it another few seconds.
Hey, while we're waiting, that 70% number, Gary, where did you come up with that?
So that's an industry number that's generally used out there. Obviously, if we maybe stay up here in New Jersey, that may need to be closer to 80 or 90%. But, depending on what retirement looks like and, how much money you're looking to save and what kind of life you lead, 70% has been a general number that's been used.
Yeah, I think we got some poll results back and it looks like quite a few people, they really don't track that. Are there ramifications that you can think of for the business for not getting those clients ready?
Yeah, Bill, and thank you for that. So I would say a couple things. So number one is, right, so a retirement plan sponsored by a company is now the second most popular benefit. So think about you're offering the second most popular benefit, and many of you or some of you are generous enough to match, and you have your employees not fully engaged, not fully participating, and not taking advantage of what's the second most popular benefit out there. You also don't have a handle on how these employees are doing getting to their retirement goals. And, when I'm brought into an opportunity, Randall's brought into an opportunity, we're always fist fighting each other for basis points to try and reduce costs, but there is a much larger cost that I challenge everyone to think about, right? And that is the cost of a delayed retirement to the workforce. And those costs truly go into the hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars versus some basis points here or there. So by understanding where your employees stand in relation to their retirement goal and how to move the needle for them, ultimately that saves the business, again, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars on things like healthcare costs, productivity, time off. And those are all ways to track that. And there's certainly anyone that's financially secure and wants to continue to come to work, at or post retirement age, that person wants to be there. They're engaged. They're going to be productive. But then when you think of someone who hasn't thought about saving for retirement and is now post-retirement and is coming there just because they need to be there to pay the bills, there's a lot more stress, there's less productivity, there's more time off, and there's obviously an increase in healthcare costs. So in working with the right record keeper and working with the right advisor and working with the right third-party administrator, we can put together a plan. We can show you numbers on our systems of where your employees stand and how we can help them get to their retirement goals through a combined team approach.
Yeah, and I really like the concept of team there, because one of the things that we run across quite frequently is, like you said, the 401k asset can be probably their largest asset,
Yep.
outside of maybe their home or other things like that. And one of the things that we find is if the end user, the employee, is not getting advice on how to invest that money, they get that advice from the water cooler or the lunchroom. And that person might be at a varying different age or degree of wealth than they are, that's telling them how to invest those funds. So that's where I think it's important to have an advisor to come in and do those educational sessions or those one-on-ones to really tailor those investment objectives towards that individual client. And it all comes to kind of surrounding yourself with a great team.
Yeah, agreed. And it's also important for your record keeper to be able to show you that those statistics, that information, and work together to make changes within behavioral finance, right? Of how do you make those changes? It could be from a plan design standpoint, right? That you could do it with your third party administrator. It could be targeted communications. It could be so many different avenues. And again, if your team is not having those conversations, then you're doing a little disservice to your plan.
Perfect. Well, as Gary said, we don't want Randall and Henry to be fist fighting, so I'm going to give equal time over to Randall at Empower. Randall, how do you see people and employees or employers, using plans to stay competitive in this business environment? And how can the TPA help with that?
Sure. Good afternoon, Bill, and thanks for the opportunity to be part of this conversation. I just wanted to build on some of the things that Gary had said. And I know you didn't bring me on here to give a plug for Nisivoccia, but I will. I'll just mention the importance when we talk about having a team and having a process and reviewing your plan periodically because of changes to your organization, changes in legislation, innovation in the marketplace. Nisivoccia is among a small group of kind of elite advisors that has expertise in the retirement plan arena. And I think that's important. When you're an organization and a business, there's a lot to stay on top of. And there are a lot of advisors out there that can serve you as an advisor, but there's a select group that have a team that focuses on retirement plans and staying on top of that. So I just wanted to mention that at the onset. I'll take the conversation a little bit of a different direction. So Gary talked about kind of the bigger picture consideration of retiring your employees on time and what that means for the employer and the employees, obviously. And that's a goal of all of ours, to try and get them to the finish line on schedule. But when we're working with organizations and businesses today, a lot of what they're focused on is making sure that the retirement program is the most competitive program that they can offer as part of their overall employee benefits package. I think depending on the industry that the employer's in, finding good people, so recruiting good people for positions and retaining key talent is kind of one of their top priorities. So along with reviewing the plan, benchmarking it periodically, which I think is a great practice, I just wanted to point out a couple of themes that we're seeing working with plan sponsors. So first and foremost, it's providing some context on the program that they're offering from a retirement plan standpoint. How does that compare with companies or organizations of their size and in their industry? Are they competitive in terms of how the plan operates, the features that they're offering their employees, the provisions of the plan, types of contributions they're making available to the employees? So providing some context, some experience, and some data to help employers ensure that the program they're offering is competitive. And then some of the features in the plan that are themes that we're seeing, that Gary touched on a couple of these. I mean, I'll start with personalization, right? That's an area where there's been a fair amount of innovation in the record keeping space. Providers like Voya, like Empower, have great technology. They're collecting a lot of information on the employees, and they're kind of making good use of that information to customize communication to the participants. So everything from how the website's designed, how the mobile application's designed, to the communications that the employees are getting, which fosters that engagement and participation. Is your record keeper providing that level of technology, that level of communication? Is it personalized to the individual? Each individual employee is on their own kind of separate journey. They're in a different stage of their working career. They have different considerations outside of the retirement program. Communication is so much more impactful when it's personalized. Kind of the, Amazon effect, if you will, of or the Netflix effect when you log on Netflix and it kind of queues up the shows that they think you'll like. So using things like artificial intelligence to help guide communications has become, kind of table stakes, I think, in the record keeping space with good record keepers. The second is providing the employees with more of a holistic view. So Gary touched on this earlier. We're increasingly seeing employers wanting the 401k and the retirement program to be kind of the hub of a broader conversation or consideration for their employees. Things like other employee benefits programs that they may have or they may sponsor, like non-qualified deferred compensation plans, health savings accounts, and factoring that in to a kind of a holistic view so that when the employee decides to sign up for the retirement plan, they have all those variables and the impact that that has on how much they can contribute, how much they should be contributing, and how on track they are to meet their retirement goals, taking into account outside assets that they may have outside of the retirement plan and factoring that into that 70% projection that Gary mentioned earlier. So working with a platform that's able to do that, I think is become increasingly important. Tying in financial wellness related programs is part of the overall education for the plan. So things around helping employees manage debt, save for emergencies, all these things have become kind of front and center with a good retirement program. Is you want to offer broad-based education that covers financial wellness related topics. And then the last thing, and Gary had mentioned this as well, is the need for advice. We're increasingly finding that employees expect to get personalized advice through their retirement program. Many of them aren't because it's either not offered or the advisor that they work with maybe isn't providing that. So I think in coordination with the efforts that Nisivoccia would do as an advisor to the plan, or some of the tools that providers like Voya and Empower offer, you want to give every employee an opportunity to have access to advice and to get recommendations on how they should invest, how much they should be saving, and then when they get to retirement, how they should be drawing down on that retirement account. So those are just some of the themes that we're seeing, Bill, that are kind of prevalent in some of the conversations we're having with employers. And it's all centered around designing a state-of-the-art retirement program that's competitive to help recruit and retain key talent.
You know, one of the things as you were talking, I just wrote a note here down, and you had mentioned benchmarking. I'll throw it out to, any three of the panelists, like how frequently should employers or managers be benchmarking their plan across the industry?
I'll weigh in on that, and then I welcome Gary's feedback as well. I mean, I think the industry best practice is at least every 3 years, you should be benchmarking your providers and your plan. I think back to the point earlier around having a sound process and a strong team that specializes in this. I
Right.
think a strong advisor team that specializes in retirement is going to, at a minimum, review the plan, conduct more of a formal review on an annual basis, and perhaps you do a benchmarking of the different service providers every few years at minimum.
Yeah, I would agree in that 3 to 4 year window. Usually when we produce a proposal for a plan, that's usually what's assumptions are made of is a 3 year window. And then we expect a good advisor team to come back to us and take a look, and assuming the plan has grown as it has, what can a record keeper do to remain competitive with what's in the marketplace? If the plan, hasn't grown as much, then maybe don't tell anyone, right? But assuming the plan continues, on the trajectory that we're all assuming in our proposal, then that's 3 4 year window is usually a good benchmark.
Perfect. Well, I think we've done a pretty good job, and thanks, gentlemen, for kind of going through what a TPA does and how they, what they provide. One of the things that I was kind of thinking as we go through this is maybe some of the people on the call are thinking, well, you've got it at Voya, you've got Empower, they've got all these services. They're probably more expensive than maybe some of the other solutions out there. Do you think economies of scale help you guys play into being, efficient and effective on a cost perspective? I'll throw it over
Yeah,
to you, Ray.
I think so, Bill. I think that there's a certain number of providers that specialize in record keeping retirement plans. And so there's some value in partnering with a larger firm where it's a focus for them, because they have the scale to deliver these solutions at a very reasonable price. And Gary had mentioned earlier, we come across this on a regular basis that the 401k or the 403b is set up several years ago. Now all of a sudden you fast forward, there's been some growth. The industry has gotten more competitive in terms of pricing, and they haven't reviewed their plan pricing in a while. And in many cases, we're able to deliver better solutions with more robust services at a lower cost than what the plan or the participants are paying today. And I think the value of representing companies like Voya and Empower is that we are leaders in the retirement plan record keeping space. So we have some advantages in terms of pricing relative to some maybe smaller providers that do not.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just add on, the more participants you have, the more you can spread the cost across, right? And I've also been part of several companies that were insurance companies that, one day decided they no longer wanted to be in the retirement business. So to Randall's point, it's certainly important to be with a company that is committed to the business, where they're reinvesting in the business. We certainly have disruptors that pop up. We certainly have mutual fund companies that also want to be in the retirement business. So that money flows to mutual funds. There's payroll companies that want to be in the retirement business. But if you look at the universe out there, there are not a lot of companies out there where their primary revenue stream is their retirement business. And that's really important to look at and consider because of the reinvestment that goes into the business and the tools. But you would be hard pressed to find some more competitive solutions than I think what Randall's firm and our firm bring to the table.
That's awesome. I do want to shift gears for a minute over to Damien. Damien, two of the questions that we get the most are, what type of plan is right for me, and or given the growth, size, scale of my business, am I still in the right plan? So I was hoping you could take a few minutes just to kind of go through that.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting that you brought up about like with the benchmarking and the timing, because the second or the third option would be when things change. As your plan evolves or as your needs for the plan evolve, that's oftentimes going to be the reason why you're going to benchmark your plan or look at some of the different parts of your plan to figure it out. And I actually am going to share a slide with everyone that this can get complicated. And this is not even including the types of plans for teachers or nonprofits or municipal workers where that might be 403Bs and 457s. But when you think about the types of retirement plans in general, and I know we've been primarily talking about group retirement plans, there's just a lot of options out there. And so sometimes navigating that water is complicated. And if we were to boil it down to me, the most simplified questions that you should be asking yourself, either for yourself or for the business, is number one, like if the airplane is going down and the oxygen masks come out, you're supposed to put it on yourself first. So the first question that you should be asking yourself is what do I want to do for myself? What do I need for myself? Doug mentioned that in the beginning where he was saying that the number one thing that you can do to reduce your personal tax liability is to contribute to a retirement plan. Well, how much can I afford? If I'm scraping by and I'm trying to save a couple bucks, maybe I don't go beyond something that's more IRA centric. If I'm at a more mature spot in my business and I can afford tens of thousands of dollars, maybe I'm going to a different type of plan like a 401k. If I'm getting closer to retirement and the demographics of my firm are right, maybe I'm considering a cash balance plan that I could save hundreds of thousands of dollars into the retirement plan. So the first thing that I would say is because we're not going to go through this, but the first thing I would say is it really depends on what you personally would want. And then the second question to me is, well, then what do I want to provide for my employees? If I want to provide a recruiting way, like Randall was talking about, how do I want to build that? What do I want to have in place? And that's when it gets down to starting to have some of the conversations around what are the different options inside of a plan.
One of the questions that was pre-submitted here is, and this is a question I think we get all the time as well, is if you have a 401k that's accessible to you, to what extent can you add to an IRA outside of that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So Doug hit on this because it's a trick question and it really depends on your own personal income limitations. So there are oftentimes ways that you can make contributions to IRAs or Roth IRAs or non-deductible IRAs. But it really all depends on your personal income that allows you and affords you the ability to make contributions to an IRA. What you can't do, let's talk about what you can't do. You can't have two different types of retirement plans to some extent in the same year. So if you have, let's say, a simple plan that you're using in 1 year and you want to convert that over to a 401k, you really need to make sure that you're lining those things up where you're ending 1 year on one type of plan and moving to the next type of plan on another type of year, unless they stack on top of each other. So oftentimes you'll see 401k plans paired with cash balance plans, or in the nonprofit space or the municipality space, you might see 403bs with a 457. My wife works for Rutgers, so what ends up happening is she'll have, access to a 403b, and then she'll also have a 457 plan through, ironically, Empower, because that's where the state of New Jersey 457 plan is. So.
Awesome. Yeah, I think, and one of the things I would be remiss without saying, and this, may come across as a plug, but one of the things that Damien says to our clients all the time, and it's become one of our namesakes around here, is it's not what you make, it's what you get to keep. And the role that Doug plays and the other CPAs play in kind of the decision of what plan is right for me, I don't think should be, underrepresented here, and that's the power of wealth and tax working together. I don't know if you'd like to expound on that for a minute.
Yeah, so one of the things that I also think about is like, what role do you want to play? So the retirement accounts, where they're unique to individuals, what role as an employer, as an HR person, or as a finance person, what role do you want to play with regard to the second most popular benefit? I think Gary said earlier today. Do you understand that you might have a role of being, I'm going to say the F word, a fiduciary, right? And what does that mean? And how does that impact me? Is that something that I want to delegate those responsibilities to somebody else?
Right.
What ones could I delegate to somebody else? You're getting involved in a plan, and there's plan design, and I know that we'll go to Charles, for this, but how do you decide what to do and when? And I think that comes in the life cycle of a business, or the life cycle of yourself personally. Like, personally, you might be, you might be sending kids to college. And if you're sending kids to college, you might not have the cash flow that you have, after the college expenses are over, right? You want to have a plan for all of these things. If you're a smaller business, if you're a larger business, how do you want to incentivize people to contribute? How do you want to get people to have more than, or 70% of their income in retirement? Are you going to incentivize that with a match? Are you going to put employer money into the plan? Are you going to do it as a profit share? Are you gonna allow your employees to take loans? Right? Is the group that you're working with, and do they need to have loans? Do they need to have access to money? There's so many different things that go into that. And so I think what's most important is that as your needs and as your situation evolves, you keep going back to that team and say, this is where I'm headed. What should I be thinking about today, knowing where I'm headed? And I think that's really important. The planner inside of me is always looking at the future and saying,
right,
if we knew where we want to go, it's a lot easier to get there than if we have no idea of where we actually want to go.
Great. Well, as I'm kind of taking notes and thinking through this, what I kept hearing multiple times from multiple people was plan design, plan design, plan design. And certainly not, but last but not least, Charles, if we could bring you in, obviously there's a lot going into plan design, whether it's, am I a startup looking to grow? Do I have a mature business? Am I really looking to transfer wealth to the next generation? Or if it's a family run business, I know Doug touched on the fact that there's a number of different, because of the Secure Act, a number of different things and changes that we're going through, some Roth type things. I was hoping you could just speak for a few minutes on how important plan design is and the role that the actuary plays in doing that to help these businesses.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, the Nisivoccia group. I want to echo what Randall and Gary both articulated earlier. We're dealing with a very unique group here on this call. The fact that you have a CPA firm with a wealth management firm together and really focused on ultimately what is the right design for client. So I would say most of the plans that we take over today, and I think Gary and Randall alluded to this, is they were kind of just dumped into a client's lap. So maybe they approached their local payroll company, they Google searched a 401k vendor, and they set up a 401k with a match or a safe harbor match, really not taking consideration, what are the owner goals? How old are the owners? How close to retirement are? Damien mentioned earlier, you know, a business owner may be 10 years away from retirement, thinking about selling their business. They want to amass a few $1 million into a retirement plan. These are all options. And I think what happens is when you have a good team together, the plan advisor, CPA, record keeper, everybody working together to the ultimate, what is the goal of the business owner, not as just putting in a 401k plan. Because what happens is in a 401k plan, I call it a three-legged stool. So you've got a 401k, which is the employee piece. You've got a potential match, which you can do many different ways. Or the really powerful piece is the employer discretionary, which is known as a profit sharing. And most business owners think you have to have a profit to do that. But yet what we do is when we design, and I say this collectively because, you know, where the CPAs are really driving this bus, is we're designing the profit sharing or the employer discretionary as a bonus structure. So where the companies are maybe giving 5 or 10% bonus, we're just redirecting that into a retirement plan where the business owners can maximize, get a huge tax deduction, and maybe costing the same as what they're doing in a bonus now. And I'm finding a lot, and again, I'll talk about this in a few minutes, the business owners are becoming more paternalistic than we used to see. Business owners are really concerned with what Gary and Randall mentioned earlier, that 70% rule. They're realizing that someone has worked for them, and as a business owner myself, we have people that worked here for 20 years, but how much do they really have tucked away for retirement? And you know, as a business owner, we're looking and saying, what can we do better for our employees? You know, giving them a 5% bonus and then burning a hole in their pocket is not necessarily the right thing to do for an employee. So there's a lot that I say that the opportunities for business owners exist. It's really just getting the right resources, the team together, and everybody working together to help them with it. So did I answer that question, Bill?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned, and you know, everybody mentioned on this call about secure. And if I would say the high level of secure is really the government, and I say the IRS, Department of Labor, PBGC, everybody is really focused on what we mentioned earlier, which is that 70%. They're realizing that Americans do not have enough to save. So what are we going to do as a universe or as a country to help people save? And Secure really did a lot of that. So one of the things they're doing is any new plan today, there's something called automatic enrollment, that we have to automatically enroll every eligible employee. Yes, they have a right. It's not a forced savings, but what by default, and again, this is by law, by default, they've got to put away 3% of their pay. And statistics have shown that 90+% of people do not change their mind. They're not going and wave out. So we're kind of forcing people to save for retirement. The other thing they did was, which is huge for people in their early 60s, is they have increased their catch-up contribution. So from age 60 to 63, they can put away up to $11,250 on top of the $23,500 that they're allowed to do. So tremendous opportunity to save. They've also kind of kicked the can down the road a little bit with the minimum distributions. So now it's age 73, it's going to go to age 75. So we're not required at age 70 and a half to take that minimum distribution. The other big item, and kind of what Doug mentioned earlier, was how do you incorporate some of the Roth features? So the Roth feature, which is you pay your taxes today, but it grows tax deferred to tax free, not tax deferred, tax free, is that, and again, it's not here 100% yet, but we're going to allow the company match and the company profit sharing to be on an after-tax basis. So a Roth contribution, so that people on an estate level will not have a burning estate issue that they have all these taxes to pay. And I come back to where I started. It's all about the right team. And everybody on this call has seen it. We can see 401ks are in play, but the wrong 401k, the wrong profit sharing. Maybe we add a defined benefit cash balance plan. And the other thing is I do not want to minimize the fact that the New Jersey state government is going to be on every employer that has more than 25 employees, even part-time employees, are going to have to set up a plan unless they have something. And my message to business owners is this: why don't you set up the right plan instead of having the government forcing you into the wrong plan? So
Right.
with that, I turn it back to you, but I think I've said a mouthful.
Yeah, I'd just like to, kind of echo from Damien's point, like we're planners at heart. And one of the things that excites me about 401k plans is the Roth component there. Because from a planning perspective, one of the things that I see the most is people put money away because they think they're getting one over on the government, which they are. But they fail to think about in retirement that they're going to have a source for lumpable cash, for a down payment on that home in Florida or enhancements to the home, whatever, maybe healthcare costs. So having a Roth component inside there where they can have that lumpable cash after 59 and a half, that it's like, hey, I need 100 grand to put a down payment on a house in Florida. So I think the Roth component is something that is not understood as well as it should be, and something that's not utilized as well as it should be as well. And Damien, I don't know if you wanted to jump in on that.
Yeah, no, I think that you're spot on. And I know that we're probably at the stage where we're going to start, getting some questions either from Katie, and if not, we'll ask each other some questions. But I think all the things that people have said have been super important. And at the end of the day, it begins with, what's the plan? What do you want? What do you want the plan to be? It always incorporates the tax into this. I thought it was interesting. Like as an example, half of the plans that I put up there on that chart, they're not even deductible in the state of New Jersey, right? And so, knowing your audience, knowing the right people, making sure that you get the right professionals to help you, getting the right team to help you, making sure that the questions that you don't know, making sure that you find somebody that educates you along the process. So I think all of those things are important.
I'm a big fan of, back when I worked for Franklin Templeton, like one of the things we discussed is when you do an hour-long presentation like this, usually people pick up like 3, maybe 4 things from that presentation. So, and unless we have questions coming in, Katie, Damien, just give me your top 3 takeaways from today.
So my top 3 takeaways are that your plan needs to evolve over time. As your personal needs or your business needs evolve, you need to evolve the plan with it. My second need is I wouldn't want to be Doug's wife who has to hire all of the tax-based questions at the cocktail party. That would be my second, because we do have to add some humor to this.
Yeah.
And then my number 3 is, some people think that these retirement plans are a way where you can save $5,000 or $10,000, but the range of contributions that can go into these from $0 to hundreds of thousands of dollars per year make it very attractive. And Doug, I think, said it best. This is the only thing that I know of as a business owner that I can put money into that I don't have to pay it to somebody else. So if I get to write off my interest, yeah, but I'm paying that to a bank. If I, buy a new piece of equipment, that's fine, but it's still not in my own pocket. And so to be able to pay yourself first, as the old expression would say, I think that that's super important.
I did have one question come in as part of the pre-submitteds, and I'll just open it up to the group. Are you aware of any TPAs out there for simple IRA plans?
I've never seen any.
No.
No. Generally, you would go directly to a specific provider to handle that. Like I know Voya is able to do that through their Select Advantage program. So generally, there's no filing. So usually there's not a TPA involved.
Perfect. No questions yet, Katie, or do we have some?
We actually did get a question. I'll jump in here. Someone asked a question for Gary. I'm sure the rest of you guys can speak to this too. With the Secure 2.0, do you see many employers designating matching contributions or non-elective contributions as Roth contributions? And is Voya backend system set up to do so?
I'm sorry, repeat that again in terms of the contributions, Katie. I apologize.
No worries. I think they're asking, do you see many employers designating matching contributions or non-elective contributions as Roth contributions? So I guess, can you set it up for the Roth?
Yeah, so Voya and all the major record keepers will have their systems, ready to go for whatever Secure Act 2.0 is asking for. I haven't personally seen that. So I may punt that a little bit to Charles. I don't know if you're seeing that in plan design at all. And, again, I apologize, but I haven't really seen that much on the sales end or heard of it on the back end. The one thing that I can tell you is that all the major record keepers will certainly have their systems upgraded and be ready for any changes that, Secure 2.0 requires. But Charles, I don't know if you have any insight. That'd be great.
Yeah, thank you. I would say that it's out there. The two issues are the document providers have not updated the documents to incorporate that language, and the record keepers are not ready. There's also a technical, just how to get it to Roth, like how you're going to report it,
Right.
1099, how is it going to be reported? So there's, it's almost like a lot of things the government does. They just put it out there and now you got to figure out how to do it.
Right.
I would say that within the next 12 to 18 months, this will be behind us, but they're still putting their arms around it.
Yeah, and if I were to make a comment on that, another person who's not involved in this call, but it would actively be involved in that process is oftentimes your payroll provider, right? There's the logistical step. So I actually think I know who's asking this question. And there's an issue with the logistical step so let's articulate what the question was. So the question was there is a provision that allows for the employer dollar to be deemed as a Roth-based contribution, meaning that it would be after-tax dollars that would be growing then tax-free for you. The logistical challenge inside of that is this. If you were to make an employer contribution that is pre-tax, it doesn't impact the taxes that you pay. And what I mean by that is if I make $100,000 and I put $5,000 away into my 401k plan and I have a $4,000 match, there's no issue in the reporting of that. But if that $4,000 match or that $4,000 employer contribution went into an account that now grows tax-free for you, you have to pick it up as income somewhere. So either the payroll provider who's issuing your W-2 is going to screw that up, or to Charles's point, the platform like the Voya or like the Empower of the world is going to have to issue some sort of tax notice or 1099, most likely, to show that that money must be taxable to that end participant. And I think that that's the key to this.
Jamie, I'll just jump in. That's as I think Charles said, it's logistics now is how you get it done, right? And as a tax guy, I'm like, my first question is, okay, how are they gonna still taxable? Is it gonna be, like you said, W-2, 1099, or what is gonna be? That's a great point. Until they figure that out, it's gonna be, payroll companies or the providers have to figure out how they're gonna record it.
That's right, because the record keepers aren't going to have an issue of coding it as Roth pools or as pre-tax pools. It's the issue of how you're going to code it in the year where it actually occurs. Were there other questions that came up?
Yeah, just I'll get one more question in here for you guys. But otherwise that's it, unless anyone has anything last minute. But this last question we have is for companies that haven't reviewed their retirement plan design in a few years, where do you recommend they start? I know you all kind of touched on this in a way, but maybe a quick starting point, a takeaway for our attendees.
So I'll start. The first starting point that you have is you get the team together and have a conversation with them and either work with the advisor, and the first person that 9 times out of 10 you do this with is your actuary. So I'm looking at Charles in this because Charles represents a third-party administrator. The third-party administrator is the person who's making most of the changes associated with the plan design itself. Now, if it's something like an investment change that you want to make, now we're working with a Gary or a Randall on the record keeping of it. But most of the major changes or the big things that I'll see, they're really starting with the actuary.
And what we typically want is we want a copy of what their current reporting is or their current breakdown. So every vendor will provide a breakdown of what is their current plan provisions. We'd want a copy of that, and then we provide a consultation complimentary.
And
Great.
Charles and Damien, just to add to that, fair to say, starts with what are the goals and objectives of the employer, to Damien's point. And then in addition to the report that you would collect, Charles, basic census information, right, to kind of see the employee population and start to look at different types of contributions or different design features that may be feasible for them.
Great. Thank you, guys. All right. If there are no other questions, Damien, Bill, anyone, any closing remarks just before I make sure everyone has the right information as we leave today?
I'll chime in and then I'll let Damien close it out. Again, I just want to echo a big thank you. I mean, I kind of added it up. There's probably over 120 years of experience on this call. And it's great to have these experts here helping Nisivoccia clients be able to make informed decisions. I would just echo, and a lot of this does start with your CPA that you're working with. So if there's anything that we can do to help, obviously reach out to Doug or whoever your counterpart is at Nisivoccia. We're here to help them help their clients. And again, reiterating the power of tax and wealth together, I think can't be understated. And several times the themes I heard were plan design and the right team. And there's a lot of great team members on this call. So whatever we can do to help, please feel free to reach out to your CPA or us on the Nisivoccia Wealth side, and we'll do whatever we can to help. And then I'll turn it over to Damien for the close.
Yeah, we want to thank everyone. We want to thank everyone who helped us with the call, whether it's putting it together, whether it's presenting. We feel really blessed that all of you have helped us along the way. And we imagine that this will continue into the future. And so I wish you all the best of luck today. It's the beginning of May. And the only thing that I would say is some of the decisions that you are going to have to face as you look at your retirement plan have timelines. So if there was one thing that I would say is communicate either with anyone on the call or whoever you're working with around what are the timelines to make any changes, because some of these things you can't finish the year and say, you know what, it's January, I'd really like to make a change on something that maybe needed to be done by October 1st. And so just get with your record keeper, get with your team, and just see what those timelines are for your plan. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, our panelists, and to all the attendees on the call today. We will send out the recording, and if, like Bill, Damien said, if you guys need anything at all, reach out to us, and we can also put you in touch with our guest speakers here today if you need anything specific. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.